Live and direct, Fabian Perspective, friendly fire on AllBall TV. You already know what time it is, baby. We're gonna jump right into things. Ja Morant is the subject at hand once again at ESPN at the beginning of the NBA season. Ja Morant, I heard some people, being way too, I don't want to say sympathetic or empathetic with Ja Morant. There's an ESPN article that was targeted towards him. Targeted now I'm victimizing him, right? It was a hit. We want to call it a hit piece by Baxter Holmes and Tim McMahon. I don't. For starters, let's get this out of the way, man. Ja Morant, you are not a victim. ESPN is using you the same way they use everybody. Let's start off with that. This article is right before the NBA season starts. It's promoting one of their players, the NBA players, so the NBA wouldn't pay ESPN to do such a thing, but ESPN would pay its employees to do such a thing. Their job is to promote their players no matter what. This is why Malika Andrews is talked about like a villain, because she will speak on anything on the past that's controversial for any player. And it seems not even unhinged. She's just very, I won't say unemotional about it, but she's the one that's gonna mention it. And it was done so before during Sports Center, and it wasn't so. It was by random anchors in the past. Now it seems like Malika Andrews is the only bearer of bad news on that network, right? And something like with Ja Morant at the beginning of the season, I just believe ESPN has a. They're in the business of media. Joe Pomp, who has a great podcast about sports media, sports business, the business side of sports, has a great breakdown today that he just released of Disney's revenue, and particularly pointing to ESPN being such a major factor in Disney's revenue, overall revenue. So how does ESPN get to do that? Well, they get controversial guys like Stephen A. Smith to jump on and make sure that they got eyeballs on them at all times by mentioning players' actions. Now, speaking of Stephen A. Smith, it was him and Shannon Sharpe who were coming out and talking about how they knew tough guys during Ja Morant's downfall. Immediately after Ja Morant, all these events took place with Ja Morant. Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe decided to reference all the tough guys that they've ever known in their life and how they're basically calling Ja Morant a fraud. I never understood that. You can just speak to how stupid the decisions he's making without antagonizing someone who's trying to prove themselves anyway. He's 22, 23 years old. He's supposed to be trying to feel like he has to prove himself, or he's supposed to feel like he has to prove himself. He's that young. We were all that young. And that's essentially what my video is going to be about, because you have the article from ESPN and their employees, like I just mentioned, who Shannon Sharpe is one of them now, who, by the way, I have to tip my hat to, because I haven't seen him mention Ja Morant not once. And he does a lot of clickbaity stuff now. I mean, I forgot the girl's name, but she's controversial, Brittany, whatever. He has a bunch of stuff going on with Chad Johnson now that is just like, I'm surprised at what he's doing. So it would be pretty easy for him to point to Ja Morant. But I think if he's not going to go that route, I salute him, because they almost had a fight on the court. Like, there's a lot that happened with Shannon Sharpe and Stephen A. Smith playing this role. Shannon Sharpe being a LeBron cheerleader, and then calling the Grizzlies out the way that he did. You're being an antagonist at the end of the day. Once you get on that court and you almost get into a fight, I think he knows where that went already. And the fact that he's not avoiding it, I don't think out of cowardice, it would just be a smart decision to just be like, I'm leaving that alone. I don't need that. And what's the point of talking about Ja Morant if he's not playing? Like, I really appreciate Shannon Sharpe doing that. You know, I think it'll be different if he's on First Take and Stephen A. Smith brings it up, which is the same show where Molly Curran, super pro woman, Molly Curran, and Stephen A. Smith turned down any backlash towards Dana White, who was involved in a major incident, right? Who made a major mistake. And the first thing they did was, well, this is, you know, a friend of mine. And he also has big business with ESPN, with, you know, with the UFC. Like, you got to remember that. And I'm not saying to bring him down. Like, I don't know Dana White to have any more mistakes like that ever in his life. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve a second chance, or we don't fully understand what happened, so we shouldn't get in his business. I'm saying Stephen A. Smith is in everybody's business at any given time for clickbait. And he accuses everyone else of doing that. But now, I saw what he said about Ja Morant, and I don't think he said anything crazy. He just said to get your act together now, which is totally different than before when he's just referencing, you know, all the tough dudes he supposedly knows in the streets, right? But it's still promoting this article. It's still promoting the narrative from Ja Morant, where he's a young kid in his early 20s given this much money, and some kid who just clearly he doesn't know who he is yet, and he just comes off inauthentic in a lot of ways, right? And the title of this is going to be The Next Kobe Bryant. What an egregious comparison, right? When you first listen to that. But here's the thing. When Kobe first came out, he was not authentic to us. He wasn't. He was a carbon copy of Michael Jordan. That's how we looked at him. He was basically a fake version, sticking his tongue out, trying to talk like him during interviews. You know, there were a lot of things that we felt like he wasn't authentic and wasn't being himself. And he's even been through incidents where someone like a Steve Stout talks about Kobe Bryant. In this clip, you're going to hear Kobe putting himself in some danger just for the sake of standing up for himself and thinking that he has to be this way to prove himself. And this is in the middle of Kobe Bryant trying to be a rapper. He's trying to entertain us from that standpoint. And again, he's in his early 20s. So listen to this right here.
And this is just a story of like his mental. So we're in New York, and back in the days, if you went into a club, there'd be a street guy at the end of the bar who would buy all the Cristal so that if you wanted Cristal, you had to see him for it.
Buy it for him. Mm-hmm.
So Kobe was not drinking. I was drinking. So naturally, it was aimed for us, but he didn't know Kobe wasn't drinking. So I go, and I go to get the Cristal. And I'm like, man, fuck this. I'm not doing that. And Kobe's like, forget that. And he's not really paying attention to like the street code. He's kind of like being a little loud about it. And I'm like, yo, like, this is fine. So we leave. We go to Chelsea Diner on 23rd Street. Mm-hmm. We're sitting there. The same guy, who I'm not going to name, is sitting in the booth, but Kobe is now talking super loud. Mm-hmm.
I heard the story from the other side, but go ahead.
Being very disrespectful. Mm-hmm. So I go outside. The guy calls me, says, go outside. Mm-hmm. I go outside. Boom. He got his hand on the reach. Why am I in this situation? Why am I in this situation right now? And it's not like it's super concealed. It's like,
it's out.
Yeah. Kobe comes outside. I'm like, go back inside. He sees the whole thing. He goes, I'm going nowhere. That's the type of guy he was. He just was fearless in that regard. Like he was a man, God-fearing, mm-hmm. but believed in what's right by any means necessary. Like, if this is the right thing to do, this is right, you're wrong, and that's it. I stand by it. He was that was his mindset constantly.
How did that situation get resolved?
He seems to know how it got resolved. I mean, it got resolved.
Well, it was the side you heard
Kobe
him.
came outside, and then what?
He came outside, and I'm like, man, nobody, you know what it is. It's just like, nobody wants to feel disrespected, especially when you're the guy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So the guy didn't want to feel disrespected. I'm like, come on, man, it's not this, that,
not
and the
that
third.
serious.
And as long as once I said that and he heard that, that was kind of how it all subsided. But that's really not important, that part of it. The only part of the story that really is important
That he stood
to
by
me
you regardless.
was that he stood by me regardless, and he didn't care. He wasn't, and it's the same thing like Rucker Park, right? Like it's the same comparison as far as I'm. He believed in, when he believed in something, he wouldn't let what was on the other side, whether it be rain or some guy, brandishing a weapon, change his beliefs.
So you heard it there, and that was Steve Stout. Someone who's been in the music industry. He was Nas's manager, worked with Jay-Z a lot. He's a real big power broker in the music industry, and he was trying to help. He worked for a Sony. He was big time with them. He has a lot of connections there, right? So he was very connected to Kobe, and he was close to him. After developing a relationship, he took him to Rucker Park uptown. He helped take him up there. He was up protecting him. And you hear there that, they ran into a problem with someone who Steve Stout believes or knows was tough, right? And Kobe came out and he did something that I don't think we would all recommend him to do. God bless the dead, but I still believe that you only do that in your early 20s. Kobe Bryant in his 40s might just look at you like, listen, man, I don't care. What are you talking about? Right? They wouldn't even be in that position because you wouldn't be going out. But you still felt like you had to prove yourself as a rapper. That's what the article was trying to say. Ja Morant was trying to prove himself like. He's trying to be a rapper. Kobe Bryant did the same thing. He was trying to rap. Literally. And he was trying to fit the bill, apparently. Right? By the time you go from this point in Kobe's life to winning 3 championships, he's still not Kobe. He's still not as respected by the public at hand or in total like a Michael Jordan after winning 3 titles. He didn't get that respect and love. People were still saying, oh, you won because of Shaq. Or you still the fake Michael Jordan. You can't carry a team on your own. Things of that nature, right? He gets Shaq traded, basically, gave the Lakers an ultimatum. He was a part of that. Shaq didn't help matters either. Of course, but that's a different story. Point is, Kobe wasn't budging, and he wanted to have his own identity on his own, singularly, right? Without Shaq, without anybody's help, it seemed like, and be a leader and be the face of winning and just proving yourself, ultimately. By this time, I had respected him because I saw the late 90s was producing a lot. It was a lot of basketball players that got a lot of money, and it felt like they were losing their hunger, which was a lot of things which is exactly what we accuse these ball players of doing now. But they were even doing that back then. And Kobe wasn't that. He felt like the guy that was the only guy on the court that cared all the time. And after I realized that, I always tell the stories in the Philadelphia All-Star game. He was getting booed by the Philly crowd, and it was like, that's crazy. He would never get booed in the Garden because he showed out. We respect you at the end of the day. And it's after the 3 titles, and then he gets Shaq traded. The Detroit series happened, where he basically hogs the ball, and everyone accuses him like, yo, Shaq is out there, right? Yes, it was Karl Malone, Gary Payton, and put together the team and everything, but this is the type of talk that was happening at that time and how we spoke about Kobe. As a whole, all of us as people. I respected him as a basketball player, but he wasn't going to ever be Jordan in my mind. And even Iverson was the people's champion because he came off as authentic. Now, Kobe was starting to come off authentic at that time as well, because you would see the interviews, you would hear the interviews and go, at least he sounds like, he's being genuine, but he still he was trying to figure himself out image-wise. And it wasn't until he caught the sexual assault charge and he was on trial, and that was him being like the most public you can get, and it was the flip of a character. It was like in wrestling, you make a heel turn. That's what it felt like, especially with the Shaq stuff looming. During that trial is when he's in the police station or he's talking to the cops and he's telling them, damn, I should have done what Shaq did, right? and he loses a lot of credit in the public for that. Even his fans were like, damn, like we can't defend that. On top of that, listen to this clip with Allen Iverson where he's saying what people thought Allen Iverson was and how he was warning LeBron and any other superstar, hey, the public is waiting for you to mess up. They're waiting for that first thing, whether it's genuine or not, but they're waiting to flip on you because, yeah, they love you, but they want to hate you. That's what the relationship is. So listen to this clip by AI.
I hate to bring it up, but the other situation with Kobe.
With Kobe Bryant.
Yeah,
Yes.
for all this time, he's the number one man, the perfect man to everybody and everybody's heart. He's the number one man.
You do know that people kind of blamed you in this sense because you were the one that was seen on ESPN and you said, well, that's Kobe. I mean, he's pure as gold. He must have done something.
Man, must have did nothing. He ain't had to do nothing.
Right.
I don't know if he did nothing, and I don't think he did nothing. Honestly, I don't think he did nothing. I know he didn't do that in my heart. I know he didn't. But he found out that Kobe Bryant is Kobe Bryant just like everybody else in the world. If he didn't do what he did, look what he went through. Every black man go through that, not doing something and then having to go to jail and find out, okay, he didn't do it, then let him out.
I was getting ready to ask you, is it a black and white thing? Is it an athlete thing? Is it a rich poor thing?
I'm not that type of dude. I don't talk on camera about stuff like that because I can't be as real as I want to about this situation. But all I know is you are you. You are who you are, man. Don't try to act like you're somebody else. And not saying that he did. Kobe Bryant is who Kobe Bryant is, dog. But these people want him to be the Kobe Bryant that they want him to be. And it ain't right. You know, Kobe Bryant is his own man, man. He only get to live one time. People are killing this man, talking about his image or whatever. I mean, the man made a mistake. However he made the mistake, he made the mistake, and let's go on. And I'm not saying the situation with the girl, like, the hell with her. You know, like, man, I have a daughter, dog, and my heart go out to her.
How many kids do you have?
You see there, Iverson, who always came off just genuine, as much as we want him to change and grow up and stop trying to look like he's 25 years old, as I say that as 40 with my hat backwards, I think we tend to just forget what it is to be young. And Iverson there is telling you about the experience of coming out of all of that. He's referring to an incident in that interview with Stephen A. Smith on a Stephen A. Smith show from years ago. I think it was called Quite Frankly. How he went through something with his wife. They were arguing, they were fighting, and it was blown up out of proportion in his mind and a lot of people's eyes on his side, because it's a fight with his wife that he's had for the millionth time. And he's professing his love for her publicly. And he even references it where it was like people expected him to be in that bad to them. I think he believed the public believed that he was a villain, such a villain, but he wasn't. He was like the anti-hero in a sense, right? He was super charismatic. But the point is, even Iverson had to comment about that. Like, look, if it happens to Goody Two Shoes Kobe Bryant, it can happen to you. I don't care what they tell you. It was there when I think Kobe realized what mattered the most to him. Let me get my money. Let me make sure my family's right. And everything else doesn't matter because I can't control how people feel about me. And this is a big deal for me to be caught up in a case like this. And I just basically beat the charge. I don't know what happened between them. It's really murky when you look at the details. It's always hard to come to a conclusion, in my opinion. I would never want to make any deciding factor when there's no real evidence. You just can't. But at the end of the day, this was a life-changing moment for Kobe Bryant, period. And after that, it wasn't until the Redeem Team years later, when LeBron is a superstar, Dwayne Wade is a superstar, Carmelo Anthony is a superstar. And that time period between Allen Iverson making that comment, Kobe Bryant getting Shaq traded ultimately, And in between that time, Shaq gets traded to Miami. He wins the title. And we still view Kobe as, see, you can't win it on your own. Then finally, the Lakers turn around, trade for Pau Gasol. And now Kobe Bryant wins. But he still wasn't really looked at like differently. Now we look at him just, there was a darker version of Kobe, like the Anakin Skywalker, and he took a dark turn. And it wasn't until the Redeem Team, LeBron and these guys really helped Kobe realize there's a whole other generation out here, and they got love for you. They grew up idolizing you. That changed Kobe's perception again, or his point of view on life, it feels like. Because when that happened, I believe he looked at life and said, I can't control what anyone thinks about me, but damn, I didn't know this many people love me. And specifically people that I'm in a peer group with, like the professional or the thing that I do in life, I'm admired by all over again. I'm used to coming in as a 17, 18-year-old little boy with a bunch of adults, basically, grown men, damn near grandfathers, talking down to me or telling me what to do. Now I'm in a group of people, I'm amongst a group of people that are admittedly telling me how much they love me, how much they look up to me. They're coming to me for advice. It was such a rare position for Kobe, who's now 5 titles in, 5 championships in, fully outgrowing the former self, where he wasn't trying to prove himself anymore. He no longer was trying to prove himself anymore. And now, God bless the dead, he passed away, unfortunately. But the legacy of Kobe is way different now than it was approximately 20 years ago. Ja Morant has a chance to do the same thing because he's alive. He's a superstar. And he's really, really good. Fabian PerspecTV was live and direct. AllBall TV, friendly fire.